I'm here today to tell you a story from a far-off land. There was once a father.
He had two sons, John and William.
The eldest son was obedient and respected his father. The younger son asked for his share of the inheritance from his father, which was like saying he wanted nothing to do with his dad.
You're nothing to me now. You're not a brother. You're not a friend. I don't want to know you or what you do.
I just need to go away.
Okay, where? Please tell me you give it to him.
$500,000 cashier's check.
Yeah.
The father was heartbroken, but because he loved his son, he let him go. The son took his father's money and traveled to a faraway country. When he got there, he realized it was time to party. When the son had spent all his father's money, his life began to spiral and spiral and spiral and spiral into despair. Without his father, the son had nothing. And he ended up in a pigsty. Then he had an idea.
At my father's farm, everyone, even the helpers, have a place to sleep, enough to eat. Wait a minute. I'll go home. Well, father won't want me back as a son. Not after the way I treated him. But anything's better than this mess. Hey, he might give me a job on his farm.
So, he got up and returned to his father's house, willing to work as a slave. But his father had been waiting for him, and when he saw his son coming, he ran to him and welcomed him home with open arms. The father was overjoyed and throws a party for his returning son.
Today we're celebrating big time.
Everyone is celebrating and having a great time, except for the other son that stayed home and had always done the right thing. He was jealous.
I won't go. It's not fair. I stayed with you and helped you with the farm, but you never gave me a party. But as soon as my lazy brother wanders back home, he gets a feast.
The father went out and pleaded with the other son and explained to him how important it is to celebrate the return of the son that was lost.
I love you with all my heart, but today is something special. Your brother has returned.
And this is where their story ends. But ours, my amigos, is just beginning. Thank you for joining us for our character analysis. I'm going to start here with the younger son. So he starts off the story by leaving his father and breaking off the relationship that they had. So he goes out on his own and he starts spending all of his father's money, his inheritance, on parties and things he thought would satisfy him. And this represents us trying to fill that void in us that can really only be filled with a relationship. So the son does all this stuff and then he finds himself with nothing. There's no food, no money, and he ends up having to feed pigs. And you have to remember that the story was told to Jewish people, and to them, pigs were seen as unclean. So this really symbolizes how the son was like the lowest of the low. He had really sunk down there. And he's there, he's broke, he's starving, he's got no friends, no family, and he realizes that the life he had with his father really wasn't that bad. So he decides to get up and go back to his father. And he wasn't expecting to be forgiven. He was expecting just to be a slave in his father's house. But when his father welcomed him back in, he restored that relationship that they had. And the son realized he messed up and saw how much his father loved him and was happy to be there again. And the pigs also lived happily ever after because they had their slop and stuff. And now to Michael with the father.
Hi, and now I'm going to give you a character analysis of the father in the parable of the prodigal son. So when the younger son had asked his father for his share of the inheritance, the father realized that his son was essentially asking for him to be killed because the inheritance was something that was saved until the father was dead. So even though the father realized this, he decided because he loved his son, he would give the son all that he had wished for. So the son took his money and left. The father worried day and night about the possible troubles his son may have gotten himself into. Even though he had no reason to think his son might return, he still proceeded to look for him day and night, thinking that maybe one day his son would return home to him. Now after the son realized what he had done was wrong and decided to come home, the father saw him from a great distance and ran to him. He was so overjoyed to see his son that was lost but now found. He dressed him in his best robe and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. He then had the fattened calf killed so that they could have a mighty feast and celebrate his son's returning. Now during the celebration, the father realized that his eldest son was not celebrating with everyone else. So he went out to talk to him, to explain that he must celebrate the return of his brother, because he was dead but now alive. He was lost but now found.
And now for an analysis of the older brother. Because the prodigal son is a parable, it is used to illustrate a moral or a spiritual lesson. To understand the character of the older brother, it is important to understand who the audience was that Jesus was addressing. There were tax gatherers and sinners there who would relate to the younger brother. But there were also Pharisees there who were the religious leaders of Judaism. They looked down on Jesus for even talking to the sinners. So the older brother represents the Pharisees in this story. The fattened calf that was killed, as Gill's exposition of the entire Bible puts it, is symbolism for the salvation received by the people who believe in Yahweh, the God of Israel. The idea that salvation can be given to anyone who wants it is very displeasing to a self-righteous person, such as the Pharisees. When the father dressed the youngest son in the best robes and gave him sandals and a ring, the older brother was angry. Because the younger brother had already spent his whole inheritance, everything the father had belonged to the older brother. And so the older brother is putting the value of his inheritance above the life of his family, in the same way that the younger brother put his inheritance over the life of his father. Like the other two parables found in Luke chapter 15, the prodigal son gives hope to the people who have lost their way by saying God will accept them no matter who you are. But this parable is also Jesus pleading with the Pharisees to change their attitudes towards the idea that salvation is for everyone who wants it. All you have to do is ask. Thank you.